Diarmuid, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Got to pretend like I didn't just try to pronounce your name 10 times.
I'm
But
used to it at this
well,
stage.
I bet. But welcome to the closing authority, mate. I really appreciate you jumping on.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I got to ask, like, where did you come in, and where did sales find you, or you find sales? How did that portion of your life come into action?
Yeah. I so originally, I think like a lot of people, COVID just kind of diverted a lot of people's life course. I was originally like full set on working in professional sports, working in professional rugby, as a strength and conditioning coach. And I was doing my doctorate on schoolboy rugby, so on like injuries in rugby. And I was using the students in the school I was working in as my guinea pigs. And COVID happened, and suddenly I had a ton of time on my hands, and I was like, what am I meant to do with all this time? I can't do any of my study. I can't do anything. So I started like dabbling into the online world. And from there, I started my own fitness business, which went pretty well. But I realized that I hate running a fitness business. So I was originally, I was on to my second business mentor, and we were doing like 10, 20K a month. So like it was doing pretty solid, especially like I had no real idea what I was doing. But I was on my second business mentor, and he was a guy who was running a business in Australia, and they were doing I think 1.6 million a month at the time. So like quite successful for a fitness business. And I was complaining that I didn't like my business, and he was like, "Hey, like you like sales and you're pretty good at it. So do you want to just come work for us?" So I instantly fired all my clients and jumped ship within the week, and just refunded everyone. I was like, yeah, if I can make as much money in sales without having to deal with annoying clients, I'm in. Sign me up. So yeah, that was essentially how I got into it. I kind of like accidentally fell into it from being a business owner, which I think is the best way to do it. Like, I think I can't imagine trying to get into it in like from not having any background, but lots of people do it. But yeah, I'm glad that I came into it the way I did.
Yeah, no, for sure. And first role how did that first role go? Like when you transitioned from your own business to just jumping straight in?
Yeah, so that business that I worked for is like, I think I was extremely lucky that they were just, it was a beast. I think my
Mm.
first ever month in sales, I think I made like 12K, and I was shit. So I was like, okay, wait, this is a winner. But that was also one of the reasons behind me jumping ship. Like, I was paying this guy for mentorship. So like I
Mm.
knew that his business was like super legit. I knew there was people there making 30K a month, 40K a month. And I was like, okay, well, I can do this. So I think I was very, very lucky. I was very fortunate that I found a really good business and that it worked really well. And that I even got to see what a proper business looks like. I think it set me up for success later in my career because it was run so well and so efficiently. And that was my first ever experience of seeing what a really good sales team was like. And that just set the tone for everything after.
And how long were you there for? How long did you close on that fitness offer for?
Um, I think I was there full time for like a year and a half, and then I was there kind of on and off while I moved on to other things for about 6 months, 7 months.
Okay. And I mean, when you started your first, like you said, your first month coming in at
Yep.
12K, do you remember like what you were kind of closing at and how many calls you were taking to be able to get to that?
Oh, taking an obscene amount of calls. This is like one anyone that follows me will know I'm very big on 30-minute sales calls just because I know it's possible, and it's just an easy way to increase your income. And that's like one of those things that I learned from that first ever position was because they just did the way they did it was 30-minute back-to-back calls, which means you have to be super efficient, like just ruthlessly efficient. And that's all I've ever known. So like for me, when I'm like, oh, 30-minute calls, like, yeah, that's achievable. And then some people are like, there's no way that's possible because they've never experienced it. But yeah, that first month, I think I was probably taking somewhere between 10 to 20 calls a day easily, and just
Okay.
like
Okay.
hammering it out. I was probably closing at like 40%, which was fairly decent.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
really
it was good. It
decent.
was good. It was a good offer. It was just a good offer.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely solid, especially like, I mean, obviously you had your own business that you were closing for, in a sense, right? So you did have
Yeah,
that background coming into it. But still, when you transition where you're no longer the face, right? You're no
yeah,
longer the thing they were expecting to jump on and talk to in a sense, right?
yeah.
It changes.
Oh, it's so different. It's so different. And I work with a lot of business owners, and like one of the things that I have to just drill into their head is like, just because you're close, like, so I give an example. There's this business I worked for in the UK, and
Mm.
the guy that he tried to build a business team, or he tried to build a sales team 3 times and failed every time, and he just couldn't understand why it wouldn't work. Just couldn't understand. And he was closing at like 50, 60%. So he was like, when he'd hire someone, he'd try to train them to sell how he sold. But the thing was, he was awful at sales. He was terrible. And he just couldn't comprehend. I hope he knows who he is if he's watching this. No offense. But he was just awful at sales. And he couldn't understand the advantage that he had because he was the face and because people had
Mm.
consumed hours of his content. He couldn't understand that when it was a random person and they tried to sell like him, it wouldn't work because he had no sales
It's
skills.
not the same.
It's not the same at all. So I was like, it doesn't matter that you're closing at 50%. You're selling like a lunatic, and it's just not going to work for anyone else. So when he hired me, I essentially had to like train the whole sales team, build the sales team, and we finally got it to a point where like we had a sales team that was closing at a decent percentage, but they sell nothing like him. And it was like it took a long time to get that into his head. And I see it with business owners all the time now. They're like, why is my sales team shit? And I'm like, because you're making them sell like you and you don't know how to sell. And I mean that nicest way possible, but that's the reality of the situation. There's such a big gap between being a really good salesperson and just being the business owner.
Huge. No, 100% huge. And I definitely want to get into that because it's, I mean, something that you've obviously addressed and been able to
Yeah.
make your name into that space with it. But
Yeah.
I think so many times, from what I've seen in coming on to different offers and working with
Yeah.
different people, it is incredible how someone can think that they have they're God's gift
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to selling, and it's always a fun wake up call when they have to realize it's not the case.
Yeah. 100%. And I think it's even the case of like sometimes you get salespeople that were really good on one offer and then they try to move and it just doesn't work and it points out flaws. So I think it's like there's lots of lessons to take from that. Like, are you really good until you can produce on multiple offers, multiple different things? Who knows?
I'd agree with you. And I'm curious, going back to the fitness side of things,
Yep.
because if I'm not mistaken, that's where you cut your teeth. Like that's where built everything around sales that is today. Is that if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken?
Yeah. Just like I've done a couple of other little bits here and there, but fitness has been like 95% of what I've done.
And fitness, man, it's not an easy sell. I mean, you hear Matt Ryder talk about it. You hear some of the other biggest names that it's the best place to learn, but it's not easy. What do you think after now going through and training so many reps and like actually selling it a lot yourself? Why do you think fitness sales is hard for some?
I think it requires a lot of empathy. And I think some people
Mm.
just struggle with that. I think, like, see, I think for me as well, like, I'm naturally like a coach and a leader, and I have like a master's degree in health science, and I have all this background that like definitely helped, I think. And I have struggled with my weight in my life. I've had people in my family that have struggled with their weight in their life. I've coached a lot of people in lots of different scenarios. So like for me, the empathy side just came naturally. Like I understand that these people are struggling. And I understand that they need like compassion and they need someone to put their arm around their shoulder and help them, as opposed to some 18-year-old trying to smash Mary with a responsibility frame. And Mary's been trying her whole life and failing. And they're like, why doesn't this work? And it's like, because the person's self-esteem is so low that sometimes you just need a bit more of a caring touch. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to challenge people and stuff. But I think a lot of people just feel so disconnected from the prospect that they really struggle to just like be that empathetic person that the prospect needs sometimes. And I think anyone like, and that's especially true for fitness, but I think there's a reason that people that crush fitness generally crush everything, because whether people realize it or not, like having that empathy and the other person feeling like you only want what's best for them and that you're not judging them, that works for everything. So like, yes, you don't need it as much when you're selling like, hey, give me money and you'll make money, and you buy into it. Like, yeah, cool, that makes sense. But when it's like, hey, you have to give me money and you have to give up all your favorite things so that you can get this goal, and you believe that you probably won't be successful, they need to have that empathy, and that empathy will shine through. And yeah, I think that's the major struggle. People just don't, they just struggle to connect to the prospect on the right level.
Well, and I think a big thing in there as well. I mean, you said you were nailing 30-minute calls and you've kind of always done it that way. I know for a fact, even myself, when I started, I really struggled to make a connection with someone that quickly and then also sell them in that amount of time. Like, how did you manage to do that where you're building that empathy and you could have that? But how do you do a 30-minute sales call? How does that happen?
um, just like, and I get in like I'm not going to say the word argument, but I get in disagreements with people on Facebook and stuff all the time where they're like, where they just point blank think it's impossible, but they'll also argue that you shouldn't have a script and you shouldn't have a structure. And I'm like, well, is it like your beliefs are the thing that's making you feel it's impossible? Because you're trying to have natural conversations where you're not in control, and you're not like, to have a 30-minute sales call, you need to be able to interrupt the prospect. You need to be able to think multiple questions ahead. You need to be it's a lot less natural than people think. It's a lot more like, hey, I have a structure and I'm playing within these lines, but we're being super efficient. And I know at each and every question, it's not about the question, it's about the answer I'm trying to get. And as soon as I can get this answer, I can move forward. And as soon as I fulfill the role of this section, I can move forward. And if you're talking about a different section when I'm on this section, I need to stop you and I need to bring you back. So there's like, it's being able to like actually efficiently control a conversation, do it in a way where the other person doesn't feel like you're controlling a conversation. They don't feel like they're on a short leash, but they are, and that you're hammering through something, right? So like, people can argue all day long like about, oh, you shouldn't be scripted and it's natural conversations and stuff, but like, I just know for a fact that that doesn't work as well, and I have all the proof to back that up. So I'm always gonna I'm gonna take proof over opinions on that one.
No, and I definitely agree with you, right? I mean, I think I was talking to Christian, I'm not sure if you know Christian Jack, the
Yeah,
other day. Um, and he was talking, you never want to speak in 100%, in
yeah,
definites, right? Like there's going to be times where scripts are going to be the best thing, and there's going to be times where you can deviate off a script because it's what that person needs, right?
yeah.
At the end of the day, it's each prospect individually, but I do agree as an overall blanket statement. You give someone with a plan and you give someone without a plan, usually the person with the plan is going to win.
Yeah, and I always think of it like this way. It's like the I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. It's like repetition and then innovation. It's like replication and then innovation. Like, if you
Mm.
have a structure that you know works, everyone should be striving to have something that works as much as possible, as like, and it's as replicable as possible. Like we should be trying to have like our script should be getting to the point where for some prospects it would do the whole job. And then it's the innovation of like, oh well, this thing happened, so I'm going to deviate because and I have a reason. Like if I'm reviewing someone's call and we're going through the script, and obviously it's like I say scripts, it's like you can't be a robot that is like not human and is just like staring at the things and reading it. Like it has to be a natural conversation, but you should have a plan and you should have a structure. But if someone deviates and they go way off and I say, why did you do that? And they go, I don't know. Then I'm like, well, yeah, no, that's nonsense. That's why your closing percentage is 10% because you're doing that. So like, it's okay to deviate and to play it by the person. But first, you need to be able to follow a process before you can start like trying to overcomplicate it. And if someone says, "Why did you do that?" you should be able to go, "Oh, because he said this, and that means he's probably going to give me this objection, so I did this." And then you're like, "Makes sense, perfect."
I totally agree with you. And what do you think is the biggest thing to be able to bring someone back on track? Like if there's someone right now watching this that is new to fitness sales and they're wanting to be able to get that 30-minute close in so they can get as many reps as possible. What is like the number one thing they should work on first once they've obviously learned the script?
I think the big thing where I see people, there's two things for speeding up calls. There's one, knowing the difference between useful information and interesting information. And useful information is anything that brings the prospect closer to a sale. Interesting information is everything else. And I'll give you an example. If I'm asking someone, okay, so what have you tried before to lose the weight? And they say, oh, well, I eat pretty healthy. For breakfast, I usually have 2 eggs and toast. And for lunch, I have a smoothie and then blah, 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 blah. That's interesting information, what you're doing. I don't actually need to know what you're doing, right? The useful information is, oh, okay, so you're trying by yourself. Yes. And in terms of results, how's that going? Oh, I'm not getting results. Ah, okay. Why do you feel you're not getting results? Oh, because I don't know what I'm doing. Ah, okay. Makes sense. That's the useful information. You can cut through it. But people don't know what they're actually trying to get to. They don't know what's useful. The useful is, oh, it's a DIY. Are they getting results? No. Okay, well, that's the problem. Why aren't they getting results? Useful. Interesting is, for lunch I do this, and then I go for a walk, and then I talk to my friend, and then one time I had a protein shake, and da 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 da, and that could go on for 10 minutes. And people just don't understand. And they're like, I think this is useful, but they don't know. So step one would be finding, like actually thinking it through and understanding each section and what is actually important. What's a needle mover as opposed to just noise. And then step two is interrupting. Interrupting is a hugely undervalued skill in sales. I think so many people are worried and scared about doing it. And I can tell you, I've interrupted thousands of people on sales calls and nobody has ever got annoyed. But there's a couple of rules for it. Is one, when you interrupt someone, you need to ask them a question about themselves. So don't interrupt someone and go on a monologue or tell them an opinion. And two, if someone is saying something super emotional, you don't interrupt them. You just let them finish their piece and then you ask them a question. And if you stick with those things and you just stop being a pussy, you'll be fine. Just ask the question. It will be okay. Because often we just let people ramble and it fills the call with fluff. And if you do that 2-3 times and each time is 5 minutes, suddenly your call's 15 minutes longer and it's confusing and it's cloudy and the person has given you so much information that you don't know what to do with it and they're confused and you're confused and it's a mess.
Well, and I was going to ask you on this, like in terms of cutting down the call time, do you feel like you get less I need to think about it objections because there's less information?
I think that shorter calls increase closing percentage 100%. Like I'm convinced of this. And the example that I always give is like American politics, right? Everyone thinks that American politics is the most important politics in the world. And people know more about American politics than they do about their own country's politics. And why is that? It's because our attention is always being dragged to it. It's everywhere. It's in your face all the time. And when you have a sales call and it's short, sweet, powerful, and their attention is only on the real things that matter, problem, 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 solution, do you want to buy? And there's no fluff, there's no nonsense in there. There's way less for them to think about. There's a lot more momentum. They're way more likely to say yes. And yeah, you're less likely to think about it because they're not confused. But if we just let them spout their inner monologue, which, by the way, their inner monologue is what's kept them stuck. That's why they're here now, because of the way they talk to themselves. If we just let them fill the call with that, their attention is so spread out between the shit they say to themselves and the truth and the problem, and maybe we didn't even find the problems because we did a terrible job, and you just end up getting crappy results. So short, powerful calls that focus on the problem, that direct the person away from whatever nonsense they tell themselves to the reality of the situation. You're going to get way better results.
And in that 30-minute call, how long of that are you spending on discovery? How long are you digging into the person?
About 15 minutes. I usually pitch it about 15 minutes.
Okay. So you're pitching at 15 minutes. Then how long is your pitch usually? I know it's getting nitty gritty, but I think it's super important. Got to plug in my camera. It's going to die. I think it's super important for a lot of the new people coming in, because what I've seen anyway, and I'd love to know your opinion, is someone will jump on, right? And, they may do a 15-minute discovery, but then they whack on in the pitch for 30 minutes and it didn't really help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, my pitch is usually about 5 minutes. I aim to tell them the price by 20 minutes, gold standard. And then I have 10 minutes for objection handling, and then I'm on to the next call. That's my goal.
Okay. When do you know when to cut it off, right? Like, I know you do 30-minute calls, but, like, how do you know when you're like, man, this person, if I spend an extra 10 minutes, I'm going to get it, compared to, okay, fuck it, just move on to the next?
It's a statistical thing, right? So if my close rate is 50% and my show rate is 60%, then there's a 30% chance that the next person is going to turn up and buy. So do I have over a 30% chance of converting this person? Generally, the rule that I have is, if I need to be, when you're objection handling, the main skill in my mind is getting to the real objection as fast as possible. And also, like, if they see you as this like caring expert, someone that really cares about them, someone that's like an absolute authority, can help them, objection handling gets a lot easier. It gets a lot quicker, because I've had people say, I want to do it, but I'm scared. And you're just like, fear objection. I don't even have to try to get the objection, right? They just tell you. Or I want to, they're really upset that they can't afford it. And then you just know it's like a real money objection. But the key is, get to the real objection as quick as possible. If it's fear, then I'm locked in, because I back myself to get anyone that has a fear objection. So, like, if I feel like I can convert them, I'm going to stay. That's like my rule. But if it's like a hard money objection, I have like a 10-minute flow that I can go through, 5-minute flow that I can go through to figure out if it's really a money objection. And once if everything checks out and I believe the person that it's a real money objection, it's like flogging a dead horse at that point. Like, there's no point. So I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to spend 30 minutes debating you on whether or not you have the money.
And are you going to follow up with that person? Are you going to put them in some type of sequence? Or are you just going to like burn and turn, next call, doesn't matter?
I get a lot of deposits. Would have been like, so like, I remember 1 month as an example, like, lead quality went down on an offer I was on. And I think I got like 17 deposits in the month. And they were all like $50 or $20. But like, because if someone has a real money objection, but they actually really want to do it, then we can always convert them, because it's like, you do it from a place of empathy and caring. Like, for me, everything should end in a deposit, pretty much, like a deposit or a sale. And the empathy and caring is just being able to say, well, look, like, the last thing that I want from this call is that you're in the same situation you're in right now. Right? So I want to do what I can to help you. So, like, are you open to me trying to help you with this? Yeah. Well, look, what we could do is we could put down something small today. And it's not a deposit. It's not to hold your place or anything like that. It's just an emotional commitment from you. It's you saying enough is enough. I don't want to be like this anymore. I found the right thing. It's just not the right time right now. But it's you saying that you're definitely going to get on top of this. And what I can do to help you with this is I can actually give you access to some of the things that we only give to clients. And me and you can touch base over the next few weeks, over the next few months, and just keep you moving forward until you get to the point where you can actually join. And then we can take care of this once and for all. Would that help? Yes, of course it would help. And then we just get them in the door. I don't care what they give me, $1, $50, $100. And then we just move forward from there. So they're basically paying me for my follow-up. Or paying the business. From
No, that's great, man. Like I haven't heard it positioned that way before. I love that you say this isn't a deposit.
yeah. Yeah, because people hate deposits. They're like, can't I just sign up in the future? And you're like, yeah, you can. So I just always found I got way more deposits when I said it's not a deposit.
That is golden. I love that. I'm gonna start using that. I've never used that before. It's not a deposit, mate.
Yeah.
It's this.
But yeah, no, it works well. Like I use deposits for partner objections. I use them for everything. Like for me, it's either like you buy or I get a deposit or I did something completely wrong. That's the only three outcomes here. Like if you don't even want to give me a deposit, I know I fucked up. Because you should want to do the program even if you can't afford it. Like especially like obviously sometimes you'll get like a bad fit. I'm not saying that like every single person, but like there are a lot. I've worked on a lot of teams, and the people with the highest closing percentages have the least amount of disqualifications. I know that for a fact because I've worked with so many teams. So there's people out there being like, well, my closing percentage is 80%, but they disqualify 50% of people. And you're just like, no, that's not how it works. So obviously you will get some bad fits depending on the offer, but like pretty much everyone that is a good fit for your program, it should, if you do your job like to the best of your ability, it should end in a deposit or a sale.
I agree with that. I like that. Get deposits, everyone. Go and grab some deposits.
Yeah. It's such a good skill to, and like loads of them won't convert. Do you know? So it's like, I'm not saying you'll sign up everyone, but like, I just want any sort of forward momentum I can get. Like anything more than just like, we've stayed in the same place. So like, even if I get $1 and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So,
No, it's a good mindset to have around it. That's really cool. How many fitness calls do you think you've done now? Do you have the number?
I think I've done around 4,000. I did like rough work of it before. So I think I've done around 4,000, made roughly 2,000 sales, I would say.
Some pretty good data. Some pretty good data.
Yeah,
Can't
so
really...
my lowest ever month in my whole career was 38% closing.
That's definitely not a bad lowest month.
yeah, so pretty solid. So I've had a good run.
That's better than most people's best months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so
but besides just like obviously the call process and obviously being good at sales, do you think that there's anything else that attributed to that? Because that's pretty powerful to be able to say.
I think that it's funny, like when I never felt like I worked that hard on my sales, but when I compare to other people, now that I'm coaching, I realized that I was like obsessed. I used to just like role play in my own head 24/7. If I had a bad call, I was constantly trying to figure out where it went wrong, like why it went wrong, where it went wrong, how do I fix it? And well, she's my fiance now, but Leah, I used to make her role play with me, but I'd ask her a question and she'd answer, and I'd be like, no, say this. And she'd be like, if you're telling me what I have to say, why the fuck am I here? And I'm like, just say it. So I just used to role play, think about sales all the time. I'd be like, every moment of my day, I used to think about it. And I think something that helped me a lot was just like, I have a very like analytical mind, I guess, or like a very like reflective. I'm very like introverted, extremely introverted, and I just spend a lot of time like thinking about like my problems. I just have to attack them head on. So if things weren't going my way in sales, I just like would just obsess over fixing it. How do I stop getting this objection? How do I stop doing this? How, like, what question shouldn't I have asked? How should I have changed the wording? And like my script as an example, like I went through like a 4-month process of every single question. I like experimented with like, where do I pause? What tone do I use? What words do I use? Like, so that I always got the right answer with every question. And like these types of things where I was just like super focused on the process, I think that's what just helped me to like learn extremely fast. And it's like I really didn't feel like I thought it was just like normal way to do it. But like when I compared to other people and they're just like, sometimes I talk to people and it's like they're having a problem, and I'm like, how long has that question not been landing for the way that you ask it? Like you're asking it the same way every time. How long have you not been getting the answer you want? And they're like 2 months. And I'm like, why the fuck why didn't you say something? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you could have told me the first time it didn't land, and I would have told you that you're doing it wrong. Like, why would you so I think it's just like not willing to accept mediocrity. I think people get to the level that they accept.
I fully agree with you. I think there's definitely a level where, and I was talking with, it's been a common theme on these podcasts, to be honest, where the high ticket space in general, right? Not just fitness,
Yeah.
but the high ticket space in general, the standards are so low.
Awful.
Like, you don't have to try very hard to be in the top percentile on an offer. You just don't.
No. And people are always saying like, oh, there isn't enough, there's no offers, we have too many offers in our community, like too many. We don't have enough people. But I'm just like, I don't like, the standard is just so low. I just wouldn't refer people to these offers because they just aren't good enough. But there's like, if you put in the effort and you're actually decent, there's unlimited offers. And I get a lot of people that they want to, the mindset is so messed up. And I think there's a lot of opinions in the space. And I think there's a certain subsection of the space that is just focused. All they're focused on is offers. They're not focused on skills. They're not focused on being good at sales. They're just focused on like, you got to have 7 offers and you got to vet them relentlessly to the point where nobody wants to hire you. And you got to disqualify everyone and you got to protect your time. And 99% of people suck when they have that mindset and nobody wants to hire them. And that's why they're all so obsessed with it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're trying to vet everything and you suck at sales. So nobody wants to hire you. So you feel there's no offers. And all you're getting is the bottom of the barrel. And it just continues forever. Instead of just being like, I'm just going to get really good at sales and find offers. So like the standard is awful. I think the sales space is getting bizopified, to make up a word. And I think they're coming into it with the complete wrong mindset. Like they are looking for this golden ticket instead of having like the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. And that's like the top people in the space back themselves to come into things and make it good.
Well, and I always get a kick on that topic, right? When you see an offer, and like, I'm curious on your thoughts as well, is you'll post an offer, there'll be an OTE or, something around like earning compartments, or earning potential.
Capacity
and
potential.
Yeah. And so I'm be like, oh, okay, no, like that's not going to be good. But like, it's based off of what the team, well, if it's a good OTE, it's based off what the team is doing. Are you going into a team to be the dead average person in that team, or are you going in with the mindset of I'm going to be the fucking best on this?
Yeah, and that's like there has to be an element of backing yourself. I think there's like, all I look for in an offer is like, are there people closing on the offer? Like, are there actually sales being made? If there's sales being made and there's enough opportunity, I back myself. Right? If there's absolutely no sales being made, then fair enough. Like, I'm like, okay, that's like, don't go near that. But there's been lots of offers. Like some of the best offers I've ever taken have been ones that, I had questions in my mind, but like it worked out really, really well. Like the offer with the guy that had tried to build a sales team 3 times. Like a lot of people would have turned their nose up at that and been like, it's only the business owner doing it. Every other person that's come before has failed. And on that offer, like within 6 months, I had a sales team beneath me. I was making nearly 10K a month without taking any sales calls because I was getting a percentage of all them. But when I arrived, like if you were to look at the history of it, it was a complete failure. But it was because I knew that he was bad at sales and he was making loads of sales and I backed myself. So I was like, this is possible. But like I've tried to hire people before and they want to know just the most ridiculous numbers. Like numbers that mean nothing. They're just like, they want to know every single number, like just random things. They'll give you a long list of demands. And you're like, mate, you haven't even come for an interview yet. I have no idea if I'd hire you. You're just a random person. Like 200 people applied and you're trying to get me to do like an hour worth of effort for you so you'll apply. I'm just like, goodbye. And then they follow up and they're like, why haven't you sent the list? And I'm like, oh, because we hired someone already. So sorry. So it's like, I think it's fair enough vetting offers. I agree. Mm-hmm. Like you can vet offers and I'm not saying just like ridiculously jump into things. But when you're an absolute nobody, you can't be trying to vet the shit out of everything when there's like 200 people applying and you're creating friction at step 1. That makes no sense.
And that's the thing, right? Like there's a time and a place to be able to ask for things. I've always gone through the methodology and from interviewing and hiring people, right?
Yeah.
That go through the process, get all the way up until almost the point of, we're going to offer them or we have offered them a position.
Yeah.
And then they say, hey, love to help. I need these bits of information just so I can make a decision. Okay, fair enough. Now they want you. You're in a position to ask.
You've established your value in the situation. Exactly. But beyond that, you're just a random person. Like nobody knows who you are, And so, yeah, I agree. There's like, I think the space is a bit weird at the moment in some capacities like that. I think they're making it a lot more difficult than they need to make it for themselves. A lot of people.
Well, this is speaking very, I guess, generalized, but the space has it's existed for a long time, right? Of course, fitness sales has existed for a very long time, but doing it on Zoom calls or doing it on high ticket teams online has really only been around like the last 5 years at the scale it has been.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people came into the industry, you look at names like Cole Gordon. How many setters and closers came in after they did some type of program with him? And when he was doing it, there was 10 spin-offs of what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
So many people influxed into the marketplace. And I think they took a lot of those mentalities, how they used to maybe ask and go to a job interview, but thinking they're God's gift, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
Before they've done shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I mean when it's like it's getting bizarrified. Like everyone comes in and is just like, I'm gonna make 10K a month, and like instantly, and you're like, you're probably not. Like, sorry to break it to you, but like you're probably not.
Why not?
And I think there's a survivorship bias as well. There's like the top people. Everyone is like aspirationally looking at them, but like. They're the top people because they were the top people and they did really well. But there's like, for every person at the top, there's countless other people that struggled. And I say that as a sales trainer, like I'm actually like helping people with their sales, but like that's still the reality of the situation,
My dad told me at a young age, and I don't know if it's a good thing he told me or not, but and anytime I wouldn't win, right, in a sports event, whatever it may have been, he's like, there has to be a loser.
Yeah.
There cannot be a winner without a fucking loser. And the same thing with offers. There can't be a top performer. Not every person can be the top one sales guy.
Yeah, yeah. No, 100%.
You can be good, you can be amazing, but you can't be the top. That's why it's called the top.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. I think as well for a lot of people, it's like, it's expectations. Like, I think there's so many offers out there where you could do 5 to 10K a month. You know, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many. But I think sometimes as well, and some people are going to dislike that I say this, but I think sometimes as well, like, people limit themselves from having like a good life and a good career and building with time because they're in an absolute race and they think like, I can't accept something that's 5K a month. I have to accept things that are 20K a month. And then they're not good enough and they end up in limbo forever instead of just being like, yeah, I'm willing to like take something, have a good life and work my way up. And again, it's that mindset of people entering the space. Like, I get people that they join my community because they want a job, even though I tell them like, we're not a recruitment thing. Like, we just have loads of offers because we have good salespeople because we train them. But I get people that come in and they want a job, and as soon as they get a job, they quit the sales training. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing. You suck at sales. And they're like, oh no, but I got the job, I'm gonna crush it. And I'm like, mate, you're so delusional. It's unbelievable. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Anyway, there's everyone's got, sometimes you got to learn hard lessons in life. And I think that's the moral of the story.
Got to get smacked a few times to learn that lesson.
Yeah. They'll figure it out eventually, or they'll move on to like Amazon FBA or something.
I do love it when I jump on a call with someone. They're like, "Yeah, I tried to be a closer for a while." Yeah. Well, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. I've watched some Andrew Tate videos. What? I used to have people apply for sales jobs, and I'd be like, "What sales mentors have you learned from?" And they say Andrew Tate, and I was like, automatically disqualified. Not that I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, nothing. It's not like just because it's Andrew Tate, but Andrew Tate is not a sales guy. So if you're citing him as your sales mentor, you're out. Apologies.
That's fair. So going back to the your journey for a second, what point were you at, if you don't mind sharing, what point were you at in terms of income, right, and the size of the team that had it scaled to compared to when you went into that large offer and when you left?
So is this the offer where I was managing the team that we were spoken about that I built, or the first one?
No, the first one, Just taking a step back for a second.
Oh yeah. So I was, when I joined,
Or at least what were your numbers?
yeah. So by the end of it, I was closing at like 55% or 56% continuously. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of months where I was the top closer on that offer. There was another girl, Brooke, who has like her own sales mentorship. She's an absolute beast. And we would kind of battle it out. But when I joined, she was way ahead of me. So that was an achievement in itself, catching her. But I was doing, that sales team kind of fluctuated between kind of probably about 7 to 15 people. I was consistently doing 10 to 15K a month. I'm actually like, I've got a weird mindset because sales is obviously people trying to make as much money as possible. But for me, I'm like super lifestyle focused. And 10 to 20K a month is like my sweet spot. And all that I do once I start to make that much money is I start to reduce my hours so that I can work as little as possible to make 10 to 20K a month. That's like my goal. So like if I can get down to like 2-3 hours and I'm making 10 to 20K a month, I'm like, yeah, this is sweet. As opposed to chasing bigger numbers. Because whenever I do that, it doesn't make me feel fulfilled. You know, I just I have some sort of mental thing of like, enough. What is enough? What am I aiming for? And then at that point, I'm like, this isn't worth it anymore. So I've always made that kind of 10 to 20. I've had some bigger months and some smaller months, but like, I literally just get rid of things. As soon as I start to like cap out, I'm just like, okay, how little can I work and keep making this amount of money? So for me, I've nearly always had the same income. And there'll be people out there that are like, oh, he only made 20K a month. And it's like, yeah, fair enough. But you're working like probably 12 hours a day. So,
and how many hours were you working? Like on average?
4 a day.
4 hours a day.
Yeah, probably about. I was taking 4 hours. I was doing 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week, and I was probably making about between 10 and 15K a month. Because I was doing in the 4 hours, I do 8 calls. because it was 30-minute calls.
That is true. I guess when you put it that way, right? You're not doing 4 calls, you're doing 8. You're still doing what a normal person, quote unquote, would be doing in a full day.
Yeah, and when I first started, so that's what happened was like if you think of the what I've spoke about. When I first started, I made 12K a month, but I was taking 10 to 20 calls. So I was working like some days I was working 8, 9, 10 hours. And
Mm.
as my closing percentage increased and my cash collected increased, I just started reducing my hours. I've always done this. Like my biggest thing that I aim for is earnings per hour. That's
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that's my metric. Like that's all I care about for me personally is earnings per hour. How much money can I make for every hour I work? And how do I keep increasing that? And if I keep increasing that, then I'm happy. And if it's over, you know, I aim for like $200, $300 an hour at least for every hour of
Mm.
work that I put in. And if I'm hitting that, I'm like, yeah, this is sick. And then I can just like chill. That's my end goal. Chill as much as possible.
Hence why you're in Thailand right now.
That's why I live in Thailand. Yes. So that I can chill.
No, that's fair, man. And I think it's refreshing to see too, because so much in this game it gets talked about to grind, 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 grind.
Yeah.
But when you look at the archetype of the average person that gets into remote high ticket closing, is they're getting in because they usually want to work from their laptop, have more time, and have the flexibility and freedom to travel, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So it's just like, that's for me, like, because I did the whole digital nomad thing as well and traveling. And it's like, what's the point in working 60 hours a week when you're in a different country? I'd rather just do that at home. Do you know? So, like, I think each to their own. I mean, if you're the type of person that wants to go out there and just like smash it out and make 40, 50K a month as a closer, like, all power to you. I love it. But as long as you're
Mm.
actually happy. Because if you're not happy, then what the fuck are you doing? Like,
What's
stop.
the point behind it?
Yeah, what's the point behind it? Like, happiness is my main goal.
Mm.
You know, that's like my main goal. I'm not fucking David Goggins. Like, I just want to be happy. And this is a vehicle that helps me get there. If I thought there was a better vehicle, I'd go do it. Like, that's the honest truth of the situation. So for me, it's like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm someone that does sales. And I'm someone that just wants to be happy and have a fulfilling life. And this is just the best vehicle I could find. So that's the way I think about it.
And is that what naturally led you to transition away and move on to, the thing that came after, which is, well, what did come after that offer?
So it was like sales, then like got really, really good at sales, and then sales management, which was like the logic behind that was I like building out systems. I like all that stuff. I like teaching people sales. So that was kind of the transition between coaching and consulting and being a salesperson. And I
Mm.
could make money without having to take just all the calls. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, I really like the coaching side. And I've coached a lot of people now that I've hired and they've got good results. So then I just moved into coaching. So it was just like sales management, coaching. And that's kind of been the transition. I've just been stripping away the bits I don't like. I don't like being responsible for other people's results. Like, I don't like having to be the middleman between a business owner and salespeople. I just personally don't like that. Because you're just getting it from both sides, and I'm not ours.
So why were
Honestly,
you doing management?
well, I didn't.
Management is,
I didn't know that I didn't like it. Do you know? This has been a journey for me as much as like for everyone else. You know, it's like I did the closing, did the sales management, and then I realized with time that consulting, in that, like, I like teaching and I like building and I like doing things, but I want you to be responsible for your results. And that's like consulting and coaching. When you're for me, when I'm management, like I talked about when I had problems with my own sales, my brain goes into overdrive and I'm obsessed and I have to fix it and I think about it relentlessly. If I'm responsible for the results in your business because I'm the manager and I'm responsible for keeping the salespeople happy and I'm responsible for keeping you happy, I cannot relax. Like, I need to fix everything all the time. I'm like overdrive. And that doesn't, like, if we're to think of what I want from life, like we kind of just discussed, there's a mismatch. So
yeah.
coaching and consulting and being able to detach from like, I can only give you the tools. You need to do it. And I'm here to support you, but I'm not responsible for you. And that for me is the sweet, like, that's what I love. Being able to do the bits I love, but without having to stress about other people.
And how did that? How did you? Hmm, was there a moment that kind of led you to, I guess, making that full transition to, you know, going away from the management side and going more into the coaching, or was it just kind of a slow, natural progression?
Oh no, like I did it'd been like a year and a half ago at this stage. I was just like feeling very burnt out, wasn't feeling great. And I was doing like, I started doing therapy and basically was just saying to him, and he was like, "You're not happy with what you're doing." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And then he was like, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" Basically. And I was like, "I don't know." So then in the end, I was just like, I just need to quit and do my own thing and just see what happens. And I had enough money in the bank that I was like, I have some leeway to figure it out. So
Mm.
it was kind of just like a culmination of just like, I just wasn't happy with my situation. It had built up and I was like, something needs to change. And I just dove in head first. And luckily it took off and people wanted what I was selling and people wanted the coaching and I've gotten good results and it's just kind of built from there. So there was definitely like a moment. I wouldn't say it was like catastrophe, but there was a building up of like resentment towards what I was doing. I was questioning, did I want to be involved in sales at all? Did I want to move on to something else? Um, but like ultimately, I love what I'm doing now. I wouldn't change it at all. I absolutely love it. So that's kind of like, it was the realization that I could trust myself to create something I loved instead of, like, it's always scary, but I could trust myself
Mm.
to create something I loved instead of just feeling stuck inside of something that had bits that I didn't like.
And I guess kind of pivoting more in that direction towards the business side of things. How did, like, can you tell, I guess, a bit of the story around the coaching? Like, how did that go when you first started out? How did that, how did you find, what were your struggles? What were your things that you're like, this is easy, man, this is fucking hard? You know, I know they're
Yeah.
both there.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's running a business is difficult. Like it is stressful in itself. And I think, again, the biggest struggle that I have is that like, it's and I know I'm speaking about it now as if I have it all figured out in terms of like balance and life, but like it's taking on too much. Be like saying yes to everything. Like the biggest struggle I had was like, and I've been lucky enough to have enough opportunity that there's so many things that I could say yes to. But it's being
Mm.
able to actually filter, like, say no to things and be okay with making less money and be okay with like it all has come back to your happiness and your life. And that applies for everything. And I think for me, that's been my main struggle is just like fluctuating between like having way too much on my plate and feeling a bit lost and then trying to like drag that back. But then also you worry about like finances. Like if you pull back too much, is everything going to be fine? And luckily, I've never had a bad month in business so far, but you still have those thoughts in your head because you're responsible
Of
for it
course.
ultimately. So for me, it's the mindset side of things has been the biggest struggle of becoming a business owner and just being reliant solely on yourself. Like being a salesperson, obviously there is elements of there's performance, but like it's someone else's money that's getting the leads. Someone's providing for you in some regards. The same as sales management. Once you're in business by yourself, you are providing for yourself. Nobody is helping. And I think that's been like the learning curve is like just dealing with that kind of in between of finding balance and being happy with what I do.
That's cool, man. And I think so many people, well, I won't talk with so many people, but myself, you know, I think that's something even myself I've always struggled with is the power of more money and
Yeah,
happiness.
yeah. No, it's tough. Like, and I think I've even like I've tried to like brainwash myself nearly into thinking like I want more because I feel like that's what I should want. But whenever I do
Mm.
it and whenever I go down that path, it only takes a couple of months for me to be like, what am I doing? This isn't making me happy at all. And then I have to pull back. So it's like this constant battle because you're constantly being fed things of like, you should want more. You should want more. But it's like, at some point, you just have to be real with yourself and be like, I'm okay with where I'm at. It's fine. And I often say that to salespeople that I coach. I'm like, yeah, you probably could go on and make 20K a month, but like, you got to think more beyond just like money. Because that's just one thing. Like, money is a tool to buy happiness. That's like, our money is a tool to, actually, I just view money as a tool to remove my problems. That's like all I care. It's just like, can I just not have to deal with anything I don't want to deal with? But like, beyond a certain point, it's just more money in your savings account. It's meaningless. So I think it's like, you got to be real with yourself. And there's people out there that just like, they just want to make money. And I'm like, sick. If that's you, just fucking do it. Like, I love it. But you got to be real with yourself if you're not actually that person, because you're going to be way happier.
I was talking. Do you know Patrick alone?
Yeah, yeah.
I was chatting with Patrick, and I was introducing a few reps to him that were interested in getting into
Yeah.
fitness, and he's a coach over. He's one of the team leaders over at Committed,
Yeah.
and he was talking to one of them, and I was just jumping in on a call, and he was like, "Well, look, like, yeah, there's guys in here making 20 grand a month, right? Like, for sure, every month they're making 20K a month, but they're working 60-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do? Right? Because you have to find that balance. Like, you can make all the money that you want to make, but are you ready to actually put in the trade? Because everything in life has a trade-off
Yeah.
to get that. And most people, the answer is, no, a chunk of them is and a chunk of them isn't. And I guess you really just have to determine who you are.
Yeah. And that's the main thing. Like, if you can, I think that's probably a big thing that most people struggle with, is just like knowing what they're actually aiming for, and not this like what they feel they should aim for. Like, what are they actually aiming for? Like, what do they want? Because once you've realized, like, and I think I've always had a feeling of like what I wanted, but it's like even knowing it for years and years and years, every once in a while you let yourself lose sight, and you're like, more money. So I think it's like just being able to remind yourself and be real with yourself. I think people are going to be a lot happier, and they're going to enjoy the journey a lot more. Because when you stop chasing something and you start just like enjoying what you're doing now and making sure that you have your bills covered and that you're happy and that everything's great and that you fall in love with the craft of sales and you like the actual skill behind it and you like developing it, your life's just going to keep getting better. It's going to build up in the background. But if you're constantly chasing something and you're never getting it, you're always going to feel dissatisfied, and you're probably going to give up, and you're going to turn down opportunities because you think you're better than them when you're not. And you're just going to have a shit time.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that.
Yes.
A lot of people. I got to ask, like, with knowing that your perception on life is aimed towards happiness, how do you balance that with also wanting to scale a business? Or is that even, because I know you do some pretty incredible coaching, and maybe you can kind of go into a little bit about like what you do. But in terms of like, how do you balance the goal of where you're wanting to be in terms of business, but also still maintaining that balance for happiness?
Yeah, I think this is what it comes back again to, that like earnings per hour. That's the game I'm playing.
Yeah.
Like, working more is the easiest lever to pull. It's the least enjoyable lever to pull. Earning more per hour is the most enjoyable lever to pull. And scaling a business for me means scaling my income per hour. And it also means scaling predictability. That's what I'm seeking right now. Like, everything I'm doing, I've signed up some cool mentors and we're doing some cool things that I'm building up now. But all I'm trying to do is, I don't care if I make more money. I want it to be more predictable. I want to be able to say 99.99999% certainty that I'm going to make this much money every single day, every single week, every single month. And I don't ever have to worry about this at all. And if I get to that point and I'm hitting my like 20, 25, 30K and I'm working hours that I like, sick, I'm happy. All good. So that's what I'm aiming for. Scale, earnings per hour, scale predictability. I don't give a shit about making 100K a month. I don't care.
And what do you, I mean, bit of a silly question, but if someone wants to come and they want to get help from you, what do you actually specialize in? Who is your person that you're like, if this is you, I can help?
Yeah, if you're someone that sells high ticket fitness programs, or if you're a coach, obviously a fitness coach as well, anyone that sells high ticket fitness programs, we can help. We do help people that are looking to transition into the space as long as they come in with the expectation of they're trying to get good at sales. They're not just coming in for a job. The jobs come when you're good at sales. But yeah, that's basically who we help. If you're someone that sells high ticket fitness, then I'm your guy. If you don't sell high ticket fitness, then I'm not your guy. Don't come near me because I can't help you.
And where can they find you? If someone has enjoyed this chat today, they're like, man, I connected with this guy. I really want to see him. Where can they find you?
They can find, if you type in my absolute mess of a fucking name on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere, I'm the only one in the world that will come up. So that's what I recommend doing. There's nobody else with that name. So just stick it in somewhere, you'll find me. But we do have a school community. Um, there's a 7-day free trial. There's a money back guarantee. What we do just fucking works. And then it's 97 per week, cancel anytime. So it's literally, there's no risk on someone's behalf to come work with us. There's only upside. So if they're interested in taking advantage of that, all they have to do is reach out and I'm more than happy to help them.
That's awesome. Well, we'll link it in the description. Um, Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on. There's been some really good knowledge bombs, and we've had some fun today. Guys, if you want to check them out, make sure you do. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. Drop in the comments who you guys want to see on next, and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Cheers.